All right, I'm going to start off with a fairly controversial opinion here, so bear with me, all right? And put down your pitchforks, all right? So, Knuckles Chaotix for the Sega 32X is not only not one of the worst games of all times, especially in the Sonic series, but it is one of the most underrated and one of my favorite Sonic games out of any Sonic game that's out there. I know. I'm not saying it for attention or clicks or anything like that. It's genuinely my opinion on that. Let's get into that today, all right? But yeah, Knuckles Chaotix. So I want to start off really quick by saying, again, you know, I'm just going to ask you to hear me out, okay? Disregard, just kind of put aside all of those videos, all of those articles, all those opinion pieces of people that have talked about Knuckles Chaotix for several years now. The people that are just like railing on it, okay? Put that aside, okay, for a minute. So Knuckles Chaotix, I'll start with my story, my journey with Knuckles Chaotix. So Knuckles Chaotix came out, I believe, in 1995. And this was one of those games where I had heard about it. I had the Sega Genesis at the time, and 32X was pretty new, but again, relatively new at that time. It was still not holding its market share. I remember seeing it at Toys R Us. It was already discounted as far as a console accessory system. And when we went in there one time as a family, you could buy the 32X and I think get like 3 games for free just for buying the console. And it was discounted. So we ended up getting the 32X, and I believe it was Doom. Oh, I forgot the other game that we got. Oh yeah, it was Doom and Mortal Kombat 2 that we got. And then we also got Knuckles Chaotix. And again, I was a big Sonic fan at the time. You know, big. It was only 95, so again, not a whole lot of Sonic games were out at the time. And I didn't have a Sega CD, so I never got to really experience the best version of Sonic CD, which I did actually have for the PC, and I still have it, but it was, the load times were slow. It wasn't, I didn't really like it. Let's just say that. I thought the concept was cool, but I didn't really like it. So anyways, along comes Knuckles Chaotix. And honestly, before I go any further, I highly recommend you put it in an emulator, you pick up a copy, whatever. I know it's kind of hard to find, and especially not many people are collecting for the 32X. I do. I think I'm only a couple games shy of a full set, American set. But honestly, give it a chance, okay? Give it a chance. I think you might like it. So, immediately, right off the scene, it's got a really cool intro for a Sonic game in 1995. The colors are bright. The characters are colorful. The the music is just really different, and the instrumentation, especially if you're comparing it to a regular Sega Genesis game, it's just a bit different. It sounds a bit chunkier and different, even though I know the Genesis audio is already kind of fairly chunky sounding. I guess if that's an apt term for a lot of the music, but It's definitely, you had a whole cast of characters. You have Knuckles, who is a newer character in the Sonic universe, but you have this whole cast of characters that you could play with. And my in my mind's eye when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is his group of friends. This is his ragtag group of friends that we don't know about. We knew Knuckles, but we didn't know Knuckles' backstory other than the master of the guardian of the Master Emerald, right? But this isn't really a backstory; it's more of a continuation. But honestly, this game blew me away. You had the sprite scaling features where you got to see that in the very beginning with not only the intro, but also when you first start the game. But the biggest thing that a lot of people get hung up on, I think, is the ring link. They call it the like a bungee challenge essentially on the cover, but essentially you have two characters. You have the character that player one is controlling, and then each character is holding a ring, and those rings are kind of bound together with like an elastic type magic type electrical power. And you can have a computer player too, and often most people do. But you can also have a second player. And the whole thing about this game is essentially navigating to the end of the level using different rubber banding type mechanics. And with a single player, it's actually, in my opinion, it's actually very, very fun to play, especially if, you, because the mechanics, it can take a minute to get used to. And they actually give you a few ways you can, some people don't want to take the chance or the time to learn a new mechanic. They just want to jump in and play, which is fine. But they give you training modes and training levels. And then when you first start the actual game, they will give you a chance to not only, like, they explain all of the mechanics and show you and give you practice sessions, but also like the first two or three screens, it's just like a blank vertical, um, like a practice level before you even get to the main hub section where you then choose a level and a secondary character. So they they start you off with plenty of different chances to just play around and have fun. Now there's a few different mechanics in it, um, and I'll tell you right off the bat, this game is not meant to be enemy hard. So you're not really going to be fighting and battling a lot of different level enemies like you do in other Sonic games, where that's kind of the thing that stops you, and makes you kind of platform or slows you down a bit, is either those obstacles or enemies. So this game is more of, I would say, more similar to Sonic CD, where you have some more verticality and there's a little bit of exploration you have to do to get to the end of the level. It was kind of funny because I really liked this game, but it took me a long time to really get into Sonic CD. I think it was because of um, the different level objectives. Like, I wanted to get to the past and I wanted to get a good ending in Sonic CD, and that was kind of a that's a different thing than this. This is more of just get to the end of the level, and each level had slightly different game mechanics. There's one level where you had to basically find the clock and then get to the end of the level, that type of thing. So, anyways, there are bosses, of course. There's different level bosses, but going back to the mechanics of the game, there's you hit the A button as like the call button. So basically, if you're stuck or if something happens, basically if player one hits the call button, player two will then basically zoom over into where player one is, and it costs you some rings. And rings, it's funny because you could actually get negative number of rings in this game just by using the call button. You get too many negative rings, and then you kind of get shot back to to the hub world. But the rings don't really matter as much. I guess it's like, back then it was still more about score, keeping score, getting points, things like that. But anyways, so you have the call button, and then you have the hold button, and the hold button's really cool. Where basically, if you're standing apart from the player two, and let's say you're player one, and you hit the hold button, you can actually the secondary character will hold, and the first character can actually just go backward and forward while the other one's holding, and that's very useful because it makes them like anchor down. So if you're kind of flying around on the screen, hit the hold button, and the other character will kind of anchor down. Or you can kind of use it to slingshot. So you have that secondary character, you hit the hold button or hold it, and then you can, go backwards a little bit further to the left or to the right, and then release the hold button in a specifically timed fashion, and you can slingshot your way forward or back. So it's a really kind of cool rubber banding mechanic that you can use. But also, if you're standing on top of the other character, and you hit the hold button, you actually pick them up and hold them around. So you can kind of like say, hey, I need to get through this part, and pick up that person. And it's just, if there's a part that's easier to just not have that rubber banding, you can do that. And of course, C is the jump button. But what's kind of cool too is, of course, you can play with a second player. And that's when things get absolutely out of hand. I think, it's, in my opinion, it's really fun to do that. But this is where you really have to use your communication skills. As a kid, it can get frustrating. Honestly, two-player mode can get very frustrating in certain circumstances, especially if both people don't really know how to play the game. Then it can get a little grueling. I have to admit. But it can be really fun, especially, I know right now there's kind of this resurgence. There's this big interest in games that are focused on co-op, whether it's one player, two player, four player, multiple players. So I think those types of people that are into those types of games might be interested in playing a two-player game of Knuckles Chaotix. So give it a shot. But that being said, it can get kind of zany that way. But so yeah, I really do enjoy and love the game mechanics. I really do. I know some people say that it's hot garbage. Honestly, it's very controllable if you know what you're doing. If you give yourself some time to practice, those controls are not too bad. Of course, there's still some, there's some unpredictability, a little bit. But it's not as bad as some people claim it to be. It really isn't. But going back to the way the game works, it's really cool because you have multiple different characters. You have the Chaotix crew. So you've got, Vector the Crocodile, Mighty the Armadillo, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy Bee. And it's funny because you don't really see Mighty anymore. And it's funny because when this game came out, and then, later on you had the Chaotix crew in Sonic Heroes, which I think is probably the next game that had Chaotix, other than like the Archie comics, which they had their own thing. But Team Chaotix was just Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy Bee. And then Mighty the Armadillo was nowhere to be seen. And then you didn't really see Mighty the Armadillo until Sonic Mania Plus, until the Plus version came out. And then you had Ray the Squirrel as well as Mighty. And very, very good return to form. By the way, this is really good. If you haven't played this and you love classic Sonic, this is probably one of my favorite ones. But anyways, I digress. So, Knuckles Chaotix. Each chaotic crew, they have their own gameplay mechanic. They have their own powers. I have to say Charmy Bee is probably the most broken one because he could just fly anywhere. But discover them all. I think it's really cool. Espio can walk up walls, which is really cool, and I believe ceilings as well. Vector has this cool like air dash mechanic, and who else am I missing? Oh, Mighty the armadillo. He can kind of hang out on walls for a second there. He can kind of like hold his feet on a wall and be an anchor there, which is really nice. But he's the most Sonic-like character. I think originally, don't quote me on this, but I believe Sonic was supposed to be in it, and then they replaced him with Mighty when they went to more Knuckles-centric gameplay. But he's like there's been fan made ROM hacks of that where they replace Mighty with Sonic. So if you really wanted to, you could play a Sonic version of this that is minus Mighty. But that being said, yeah, again, the music is fantastic. Some of my favorite Sonic music is in this, and it's funny too because in future games, and some of the Origins games and the future collections and things like that, there's actually they replay music. They have like in their music, like the jukebox or the sound test. They have Knuckles Chaotix music, and this game has never been re-released, never been put in any other collections. It's been just it has lived and died on the 32X, and it's a shame because the gameplay is fun, the music is great, the levels are very creative and inventive in my opinion. There's a couple I don't like. The way that it goes through the gameplay arc is really cool because it's like an amusement park island, which, yeah, very original, but back then that was pretty fresh. That was pretty fresh in 95 for Sonic, right? So you go through, and there's this thing called the combi catcher where basically as a single player you can choose whoever you want. You go to the combi catcher, and it's like a crane machine where you have characters popping in and out, and you try to grab a character as your second, right? But the funny thing is there's two extra characters that are robots. There's one that's just called Bomb, and he's basically a bomb with arms and legs, and he can kind of blow up when he takes damage, which is fine. But he's nimble, so I'm fine if you accidentally pick him. But then you have Heavy. You have the Heavy robot. He kind of sucks. He can't jump very well, and he's basically a boat anchor. So try to avoid Heavy unless you're into that. But you can pick from different characters. But anyways, you pick the character, and every time you come back there for the level selection, you can choose to walk past it if you like your character duo team, or you can have another shot at choosing your secondary character, which is awesome. I love that. But then to go up to choose a level, basically, is like a pinball machine where basically it'll randomly cycle through the different available levels that you have, and you hit the bumper, and then it just lands on one. And there's different zones, and there's different acts per zone. So basically, you'll have like, let's say, like the boatyard level, where you can revisit it 2 or 3 times. There's 2 or 3 different levels, and then you have the boss battle. And once you're done with that, then you can't choose that level. You basically have to clear out all of them, and it's fairly random. You can't, unless you're really good at picking it, you can't really automatically land on the level you want. So it's kind of cool that you can do that. It's a little bit out of your hand, but once you do that and you do that, then of course you face the final boss, and you can beat the game. Special stages are really cool as well. They're actually in full 3D, which is really neat. 3D, and you can kind of go around. There's these different pipes that you would walk through, and you have to collect the blue spheres. Yes, blue spheres. But there's you're running forward, and then you have to avoid the obstacles, avoid the pits that will make you fall into oblivion, and you collect a certain number of blue spheres to get to the end of the level. So it's kind of like Sonic 2, where you have to collect the rings, a certain amount of rings before the end. In this case, it's blue spheres, and then you get a chaos ring. You collect the chaos rings instead of chaos emeralds, right? But you also have these mid-stage rings that you can get into that will. It's kind of like, in a way, vaguely, where it's like it's kind of like the Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, where you have the you basically can collect like rings and stuff, but in this case you're falling forward through space, and there's just these objects that are in your way that are either bounce pads, or there's these little exit blocks that will exit the stage, rings and 500 point blocks and stuff like that. So it's just to gain points and rings and stuff. So, but it's really cool. I mean, it shows off some of the power of the 32X, and definitely unique for the time. So I think it's a crime that this game has not come out on any collections, except for the music. And again, the music is great. It's fantastic. But it's the fact that you can't play this legally, unless, I mean, it's pretty much abandonware at this time, which sucks. But this game is amazing. It's one of my favorite games on the 32X, and I mean, I do have a few other games that I do like on 32X. Kind of biased, but it's one of my favorite Sonic games of all times. And as you can see, I have a few. I've talked about it before. I love Sonic. I love classic Sonic is my favorite, but this game is so unique. There's nothing else quite like it. There was kind of a prototype that came out called Sonic Crackers, which was, I don't remember the full story behind it, but I think it was like the prototype before this. But there's been nothing that has been similar to this that has come out, other than maybe Sonic CD, for at least for the level design, where it's a bit more vertical. Um, but yes, I highly recommend, as a big fan of this game, give it a shot. I highly rate it. I highly recommend it. And please tell me, there's got to be other fans out there of Knuckles Chaotix. Tell me in the comments below if you love Knuckles Chaotix. Tell me if you've played it and you absolutely hate it. Just tell me that. I'd rather you try it and tell me you hate it and say, I hate it because I didn't like this mechanic, or I didn't like the level layout. And again, I mean, I understand if people will bandwagon and say, well, so and so said this and I trust their opinion. I get it. You know, it's easy to trust people that you like and whatnot. But honestly, form your own opinion on this one. I'm going to die on that hill. Knuckles Chaotix is one of my favorite games. I'm not even going to say it's the best, one of the best Sonic games. I'm just saying it's one of my favorite games, and I feel like it is criminally underrated. So give it a shot. Tell me what you feel about this game in the comments below. I want to hear about it. I feel like we need to talk more about Knuckles Chaotix. We really do. This is a crime. Sega, please re-release Knuckles Chaotix somewhere. I don't care. You release 20 different Sonic collections on 20 or 30 different machines, and none of them had Knuckles Chaotix. You had Sonic the Fighters on Sonic Gems collection back on the GameCube. Release this game, please. Even if it's just emulated. I want more people to be able to play this game, personally. So underrated, alright? Well, anyways, thank you for listening to me yammer on about Knuckles Chaotix. And again, I've been wanting to talk about this game for so long. I actually made an old review on it like 10, 15 years ago, probably at this point. And I think it may have been posted somewhere, but I wanted to kind of re-talk about it and give you my thoughts about it. So, what do you think about Knuckles Chaotix? If you don't have an opinion on it and you haven't played it, go try it. Go grab an emulator. Go out and buy a 32X. buy this game, which is absurdly expensive at this point. Just play it somehow, okay? I don't care how you play it. I'm not going to condone piracy, but they don't sell this game, so whatever. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me today and listening to me ramble. I hope you have a great day, and game on.